You know, it sucks when you go and make a bunch of predictions about the games happening over the course of the weekend, and basically none of them become true. Everything you talked about last week doesn't matter this week. So now I'm going to go over 8 things we learned in the volleyball world over the course of this past weekend, Easter weekend, the first weekend of April in 2026. And I'm going to start things off in Verona, where I thought this series between Verona and Lube, two of the best offensive teams in the Lega Volley, was going to be spicy. And now here's what we've learned. Verona's offense is really, really good, and Lube is in deep, deep trouble. Now, I'm not going to do too much into this match because I've already actually got another video breaking down a little bit more in depth this matchup between these two teams, but here's the synopsis. Lube looked really, really good throughout the first half of the first set. They were leading 19-14, right? We saw a banger first point in this match. Back and forth, good digs on either side. Darlin with a big swing. Nikolov shuts him down for the block. And then it was all Lube the first half of the first set. As I said, they were leading 19-14, and that ended up being a 34-32, one of the best sets of the weekend win for Verona. I mean, Botolo had a chance to really take it over. I'll tie it up at 32-32 after a vote to hear overpass, and it did not work. And Verona just crushed through the rest of that, right? The rest of the match. They won the game completely in the first phase, serving and passing, absolutely dominating Lube. It was all Verona in this one. It really was. You can see the score there on the screen, 34-32, 25-21, 25-21, and even that shows a little bit more close of a match than we actually had. As I said, I'm going to do a bit of a breakdown on it because I think there's a lot of things to look at. Verona's offense was absolutely cooking. I'll just tell you now, their side out rate, first ball side out rate was a 57.1 versus Lube's 41.9. Almost a 20-point difference between those two teams in their first ball side out. But that's all we're going to say about it for now. Verona takes match 1 at home. Match 2 goes on Wednesday back in Lube. Second thing we learned this weekend, Perugia is just cruising. They are on cruise control. They picked up a 3-1 win over the Efe Mandiraci Piacenza in their semifinal. And now this one, you know, I'm a little bit less of a liar. When in my preview, I really talked about how big Efe Mandiraci needed to be for Piacenza in their match. And it turns out he was injured. But on the Perugia side of things, they were outstanding. Just simply outstanding. Hit 55% with a 43% efficiency as a team. Bentara had 19, Plotnitsky had 18, Semeniuk had 14. They were just going all around. Perugia was absolutely cooking in this one, looking really good. Now, there's still some room to improve because they had a very un-Perugia-like serving day on Monday. 4 aces, 21 errors. That's not typically what we see from the best serving ratio team in the Lega Volley. So still some room to improve for Perugia, but they are absolutely cooking right now. But at the same time, it did look like they were cooking last year in the first 2 games against Lube. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Third thing we learned, without Efe Mandiraci, Piacenza has no chance. Now, they announced before the match that he would not be fielded and not be playing due to a shoulder problem. We did see him come in off the bench a couple of times. That was mostly just in blocking situations. He did not play a factor really in this game. And then after the match, Dante Bonifonte, their head coach, said that he has tweaked something in the win against Ljubljana, the serving breakdown that I did earlier on last week. So if you missed that, go check that out. So he tweaked something in his shoulder, the exact same shoulder that he tweaked during the World Championships last year that kept him out of the quarterfinals against Poland. And they are saying that the goal is to have him available for the Cup and, if possible, for the next matches as well. So it sounds like Mandiraci is day-to-day right now for Piacenza. And you know what? They really need him because they could not score without him. They had a huge struggle scoring without Mandiraci in this match. Gutierrez was 11 for 27 on the outside with an 18% efficiency. Bovolenta on the right side was 14 for 30 with a 30% efficiency. Now they had Robert Andrenga come in who did decent in serve receive, had a 30% positive and 26% perfect on 19 targets, but he was only given the ball 9 times and was 4 for 9 in the match. Also added an ace and 1 block for 6 points. But the fourth thing we learned from the weekend is that Robertlandy Simon is still absolutely the GOAT, right? There's a reason we call it a Landy line, and we had an absolutely just vintage Landy line in this one. 19 points for the Cuban middle blocker. He was 12 for 18 down the middle with a 67% efficiency. No errors, did not get blocked, had 4 blocks and 3 aces on the afternoon. He led his team with a +10, led his team in scoring as well. So the old man out of Cuba is still looking like one of the best blockers of all time, one of the best middle blockers. He is the best middle blocker of all time. Still putting up numbers like this. And if he can play like that without Mandiraci, if they can get Mandiraci back, then maybe it is a bit of a different story. Maybe. But without Mandiraci, I don't see much daylight in this series for Piacenza. I think they'd be lucky if they even won a match. Now, I'm not here to only talk about the Lega volley because we did have playoffs going down in the Plus Liga as well. The first one that we need to talk about is the unclutch chokiness of Zaksa. For 2 straight years, they have gone back to their home gym for game 2 of the quarterfinals and have choked it away. And this time was even worse. Last year, they lost in the quarterfinals game to Lublin. And I mean, it was a bit of extraneous circumstances. Kurek, who had been their team all year long, had a bit of an injury, tweaked in the days leading up to it, and they had to switch everything around. This time, no such luck. This time, I mean, it was hard to watch. Zavierci took set 1, 25-22, and then in the second set, it looked like Zaksa was just absolutely cruising. They were leading 24-17. 24-17, it looked like they were going to be able to get right back into this match. And I mean, in some ways they did because they did end up winning the set. But they won the set 25-23. So from 24-17 all the way to 25-23, Zaksa was just choking away and allowed Zavierci to come all the way back. And I mean, Zavierci had a chance to tie it all up. Right, they got the transition ball. Aaron Russell got the set. And I mean, he was fantastic on the afternoon, but he made his one error of the match. His one error was on the match was when set 2 was on the line, 24-23, and he buried it into the net. I mean, he was outstanding for the rest of it. 51% efficiency and 18 kills for 20 points, a team high in this one. But after that, it was the same thing. Zaksa then led 20-17 in the third set, made 3 attacking errors and 2 serving errors. After that, ended up losing that set 25-23, and it was the same thing in the fourth, leading 20-18 on their home gym. And you know what? It was too bad because Kamil Vichliki was really good in this match, 16 for 39, 16 points. But it seemed like him and Jakub Szymanski, who's been the other, breakout player for Zaksa in this playoffs, just could not put the ball away after 20. Richlicki just seemed to get a little tight, and I'm pretty sure his 17% efficiency is mostly to do to his swinging inabilities after 20. So Zaksa leading sets 2, 3, and 4 and crumbling in all of them, giving Zavierci the win 3-1, and they will be heading back for game 3 in Zavierci's home gym, or their home playoff gym, I might say, on Thursday afternoon. The sixth thing we learned from over the weekend. Now, that man right there, Benjamin Toniutti, he may be retiring from the national team, but man, is he ever still good. Jastrzębski Węgiel just managed to keep this series alive and keep possibly their club alive, if you know everything that's going on with that, despite being outplayed in every single aspect of this game against Warszawa. Every single aspect of this game was in favor of Warszawa. Warszawa out-attacked them. They had a 56% with a 44% efficiency versus a 54% and a 35% efficiency for JW. Warszawa outpassed them, 52% positive and 22% perfect versus 43% positive and 15% perfect for JW. Warszawa outserved them. They had 10 aces and 16 errors against 5 aces and 16 errors for JW. And Warszawa even outblocked them. 10 stuff blocks, 13 touches versus 8 stuff blocks, and 12 touches for JW. But JW still came out with the win because their offense in sets 3 and 4 was absolutely lights out. They were 16 for 24 with a 54% efficiency in set number 4, and they were 13 for 16 with a 75% efficiency in set number 5. They were combined 29 for 40 with a 72.5% efficiency in sets 4 and 5, down 2-1 with their series on the line, with their potential history of their club on the line, and they were able to squeeze it out. Hell, Warszawa was even 9 for 12 with a 58% efficiency in set number 5. The only difference was the fact that they made 2 errors, right? 2 errors was the big difference for Warszawa in this 5th set. And game number 2 actually goes on today. It's actually probably going on already or has already gone on by the time you are watching this video. So Toniutti, won't be seeing him again in a French jersey, but man, does the old man still got it. Next up, talked a little bit about last week, about how Fenerbahce has let go of Engapeth, and maybe they should have kept him. right? Maybe they should have kept him against their biggest rival in the Cup semifinals, as Galatasaray took the match 3-1 against Fenerbahce Medicana. And I mean, overall, Galatasaray just looked way better. Fenerbahce really struggling to score. Kaan Gürbüz leading them in scoring with 13 points coming in off the bench. Adis Lagumja with only 9 points. He was 7 for 18 with a 28% efficiency. Luka Martila, who's the guy who's supposed to be taking the place of Engapeth, 6 for 17 with a 12% efficiency. Yigit was the only decent guy out there. He was 10 for 18, but really just not a great look out there for Fenerbahce. But on the other side of the net, now with Jean-Patrick back healthy, Thomas Jeschke back, and Steven Mar back healthy, those three just absolutely dominating Fenerbahce in this one. Patri led with 20, Mar had 19, and Jeschke had 16. And that Turkish Cup final is going on right now against Ziraat Bank. And Ziraat Bank, just to touch on it, destroyed Istanbul Gençlik. Not anything you really need to know. It was a pretty pedestrian match. Nemir was really good. So was Thomas Fornal. But these two teams playing in the finals have lost 8 of the 9 finals combined that they've been in. Ziraat Bank has won 1, and that was in 2010, so 16 years ago. So that one will be interesting. Probably talk about that a little bit afterwards. And then finally, the last thing we need to talk about is Moni Nikolov, because the young star is going viral for all the wrong reasons this time. And now he is currently in the semifinals of the Russian Championship. And you'll see here, he actually gets a really big block on Dmitry Volkov. Zenit Kazan goes back. They're going to challenge it. And it's because of this. Now, Moni Nikolov, it looks like he is in the net. And what is in the net, might you ask? What is in the net as we get a little bit closer? Yeah, his junk is in the net. Moni Nikolov's junk is in the net. And our big question is, the thing we've learned here is Moni Nikolov needs to wear some tights. Maybe some Under Armour, some Nike, some Macron, that's their jersey sponsors. Something underneath to keep that big package of his, in sorts. He needs to control it a little bit better. Let's be honest. We knew that this guy was swinging from the way that at 18 years old, he was bombing from the baseline, but it has been going viral on Twitter. Being a big server in volleyball really is a problem. People are absolutely loving it. And, Moni, I'm sure you can get a sponsorship to get you some tights. Maybe talk to Volleyball Rags. But, on top of that, he's really showing that he is the real deal, as Lokomotiv is tied 1-1 with Zenit Kazan in the Russian League semifinals. And once again, they won match 1. They still don't have Sam Daru out there. And Nikolov had 5 points in match number 1, a 3-2 win over Zenit Kazan. He had 5 points. He was 4 for 6 in attacking with 1 block, and he set his team to hitting a 55% with a 40% efficiency. Absolutely massive for the 19-year-old Bulgarian phenom. Match number 2, which was the clip that we just saw from, a little bit better in favor of Zenit Kazan. They took that one 3-1, and 4 points for Moni Nikolov in that one. 2 aces and 2 blocks. He set his team to just a 44% and a much lower efficiency. So, Moni, just go out and grab yourself some Under Armour, some tights, just to keep everything nice and tight, okay? That is what we've learned from volleyball this week, and I will be back shortly breaking down a little bit more in depth the Lega Volley semifinal between Lube and Verona, because it's not done yet, but it is going to be a very good one. So please like and subscribe. It would, do a lot for me and the channel. And if you haven't yet, join us over on the Volleyball Source Discord, the best online volleyball community in the world.